Welcome to our presentation on how to set up 123 Sync to run as a Windows service. Before we start, there's two things we have to remember about setting up 123 Sync as a Windows service. One, when you run the setup, you need to have administration privileges to install the Sync service. And two, you need to remember the username and password for the login that you're using. So if you're running as administration, when you set up the service, you need the username and password. If you're running as a different username like act admin, you need the username and password for the act admin. So let's get started. From 123 Sync, you go to the tools, and right there's Windows Service Installer Manager. You click on that. This is going to be the point where you're going to be installing the Windows service. So from the Service Manager, you go to Tools, click on Install. It will tell you ask you what version of software you're running. Say accept the act version, and then it will install the software. So your next step is to see if it has been installed and then configure the installation. So just go to Start, Programs, Accessories, and click on Windows Explorer. Windows Explorer is probably the most easiest way to get there. Then you go to My Computer. On My Computer, right click on My Computer and go Manage. So now you're managing the computer. On the Managing, there's one section called Services and Applications. So you double click on this, and now we can see right here is our Windows service that we just installed. It hasn't started yet, and you don't want to start it because you need to configure it first. So you right click on it and then click on Properties. So everything is fine. What you need to do is set in the correct login. If this login is incorrect, the service will just not work. In our case, our username is atest, and we just put in our password. We'll click Apply. So now the service has been configured. So what we do if the system's reboot and we want it to start it automatically, we can actually set it to start automatic here. But in our case, we just want to do a manual and for rebooting. So we click here. Just now it's configured. So we just go in the Start and click Start, and now it's started. You can see here on the status that the service is started, and it will be running in the background. So the nice part about it is very quickly now we have a service started that will run upon whatever settings we've set up 123 the background manager for 123 Sync to run. So now let's just go back to our 123 Sync service manager interface. You'll see there's two logs, the processing log and the services log. The services log basically just sees whether the service has been set up. It will either be empty or it'll be full, or it'll have data in it. So if you just click to open it, you will see that the service successfully started, and this means that it can access the setup database and everything is there. If no data is in here, that means you got an incorrect username and password on the service. So if there's nothing in the sync log, then your username and password on the setup of the Windows service is incorrect. So what it's just telling that it's scheduled for the next date, and you can just refresh, and it's just waiting there for the next synchronization. So let's just go back to the 123 Sync service management interface. And if we click on the open processing log, there's nothing there. We can see there's nothing on the processing log. So basically what that indicates that a sync hasn't happened yet. So the sync is set for every 15 minutes, and we just set this. So it's going to go at 1:43. It's 1:30 at the moment. So let's just set it to sync now. What it will do, it will set the date to now, and the sync service will look whether it should be syncing or not. Now we can see that the processing log indicates that the sync has actually happened. And you can just analyze it and see, and basically you can do a refresh, and it will show you all the data of the synchronization. If you could open the services log, you can see here as well that the sync has occurred, and the next sync is now it's at 1:44 a.m. So this way, by looking at these parameters, you're able to see whether the sync is happening or not. Let's go back to the 123Sync service management interface, and assume that you don't know whether the service has been started or not, and you don't want to look at the service manager in Windows. You can always go to Tools, Advanced Debug Settings, and enable the timer logging, and that will actually log the times every time the sync service wakes up. And let's look at here. So what's happening here now, it writes to the log every time the sync service wakes up and compares the date when it should be executing. This way you can actually see whether the sync service is actually running or not. And if the timer log, if that is enabled, and this is not, you're not having an entry every minute, then your sync service is not running. And that's just a good indicator that the sync service was not activated in the Windows services. Another thing, you don't want to leave this on because this will actually create a lot of data. So just disable it, and that's it. And now you can just clear the log, and then there's nothing there. So next time next time it comes up ready to go, it will enter an activity into the log. So the big question here is, when does 123Sync service not work? And from our experience, we've seen three scenarios. One of them is when you got the incorrect username passwords on the Windows service setup. So just set the correct username and password and it should work. Second scenario, when the username and password that you entered on the Windows service is different from the one you used to set up 123Sync. So use the username and password that you originally used to set up 123Sync for the Windows service, and then it should work just fine. And finally, if the service hasn't been started in Windows, it sure is not going to be executing. So just start the Windows service or set it up to start automatically in Windows. Oh, the one piece I almost forgot is if your Windows service blocks our software from executing, the Windows service will not work. So what we have is our Windows service executes a file from the installation folder. If your security software blocks it, then our Windows service will just not work. Basically, so then you have to use either the system tray background processor or just the standard Windows Task Manager to run background processes for all 123Sync.